About 6 months ago, I did a video here titled 8 Tips on What to Do or Not Do When Applying for a Job. The reason I did that is because I had started looking for a real job. I've been a consultant for a lot of years, but things slowed down after the pandemic, and I'm still looking for a job. So I did that video because I had discovered some things to do and not do based on things I had been reading. And for a while that seemed pretty good advice. I was getting a lot more attention. And since I wasn't getting any attention at all, this was like a growth. But there's still a lot of issues. There's a lot of things out there that most people don't know about. So I wanted to talk about that. But this is going to be a little more interesting. I'm going to try not to make it super long, but you know how I am if you've been here before. But I'm going to try because I've discovered a lot more stuff. For instance, the monthly jobs reports. I don't know if any of you follow it as much as I do, but I usually catch it every month, and it shows how there are more jobs available. Well, it turns out there's certain types of jobs that are available every single month that's been growing. And overall, they're not jobs that most people are actually applying for, which is how come the number keeps getting so big. And here's the top 5. In order: private education, because teachers are quitting all over the country, but mainly in the South. and for anyone who thinks I'm trying to be biased, go look up the 10 worst states for education. They're all in the South. I'm not going to say why there's a problem. I'm betting most of you know. So education, health services. Health services. There's a nursing shortage. There's a nursing shortage because you're not having as many people who are putting out, trying to go to school for nursing because it's difficult. It doesn't pay as much as you think it should. It pays more than if you're going to work at the post office or something, but for the hours they put in and the type of work they do, nurses are underpaid. And it's not just nurses, but they're, really the main group. And a lot of them across the country are starting to strike. And the last thing you want if you need medical care and you go to the emergency room is having an emergency room nurse on strike. So think about that. Then you have construction. Well, this one is different, but it's not in the fact that this one is more dependent on migrant workers. I'm sure that you've heard about all these people, politicians, Republican politicians, who are griping about too many migrants getting into the country. Well, Florida is in trouble because they decided they were going to get real strict on that. And so a lot of migrants didn't go to Florida. Where is most of the construction in the country? Florida. Who does most of the work? Migrants. And so a lot of constructions had to have been shut down. And they had one big hurricane and another one, but they don't have anyone to build anything. So they're trying to find ways to get those folks back in, even though the state passed a law against it. So that's a big one. Leisure and hospitality. I don't necessarily know what that really is supposed to mean. To me, I think of hotels. I'm not sure if restaurants count. It didn't just, talk about all that. But truthfully, there's fewer people who are traveling in the country, going to different hotels and whatever. Airbnb has been suffering a lot lately. So, there's fewer people who are working in those kind of places. And they don't pay well. I mean, the country pretty much can get away with paying folks who are working in restaurants, the servers, whatever. We all want those folks. But they don't have to pay them a living wage. That's why they get tips. But, most restaurants get to take a portion of those tips. So, that's not necessarily a wonderful job, but it's a job. And then finally, government. There's tons of government jobs because you have people who decide they want to, be in a political situation for a party that they support. There's folks who just want certain types of jobs. There's jobs oh my God, the tax folks, where, they got money so they could hire more people, but they haven't been able to hire more people. So, you have this major backlog. You're trying to get all those people. You got to get those people trained. A lot of those people are going to have to work remotely because everyone is not going to move to Washington, D.C. So it's just a mess. But that's where all the real big jobs are. And I'm going to tell you something, and I'm going to link to the video. It's not my video. That became real illuminating because it turns out that there's a lot of jobs that you might see on job boards online or on LinkedIn. And it turns out that a lot of those jobs ain't really available. And it's a terrible thing. I think it's demeaning, it's dehumanizing, it's sneaky, and the thing is that it's not what you think it is. And I'm just going to mention Amazon. Amazon is always posting for jobs. They're always the exact same jobs. But most of the time, they don't actually have those jobs open. So you're applying for jobs that are already filled. And I'm going to get to LinkedIn. It's going to be on this list I have because I'm going to give you 6 truths about jobs right now, things that you probably should be looking at and saying, don't waste my time. You know, this is my thing now. I'm not going to waste my time on these certain things because I know kind of what the scam is. So here we go. The first one, which I mentioned with Amazon. Don't apply for positions you see being advertised all the time. What it turns out is that companies like Amazon are always advertising for the exact same position because if someone leaves, they want to have this pool of people that they can look through, but one at a time. Amazon goes through a lot of people, but usually that's people on the floor, you know, moving all the boxes or whatever, and that's tiring. But for management, they don't really have a lot of turnover. Those folks start at $50,000 a year. So they just want to have these big numbers on there, and they're always looking for someone, but they're not really looking for someone. That's just people being taken advantage of. And I just mentioned Amazon. That's everywhere across the country. So it's not just Amazon, but they just happen to be one of the big companies that does this all the time. The next thing, and I'm going to talk about LinkedIn on the next 2. For LinkedIn, don't apply to any company that's reposting positions. I totally missed this the first 6 or 7 months. I'd never paid attention to that. You know, you see a couple of things on there. One of these says reposting. So usually when I go for a search, I'm looking for jobs that have been posted within the last 3 days. I don't want to see any jobs that were posted a month ago. I don't want to see anything 2 weeks. I usually look for the last 3 days. And so you look at fewer junk offers. However, one of those things that happens is that a company that is bidding for jobs or, you know, looking for people to hire can repost something. That does a couple of things. And one of those things is going to be ingrained in my next point, which says don't apply for any positions that has more than 150 applicants. That's something else I never paid attention to until this summer. I just never noticed it. So sometimes you will go and look for a position and you will see like 3,000 to 4,000 people who have applied for that position. Well, what's the sense in you putting yours in? Because what odds do you think you're going to have when 30 or 3,000 people or 4,000 people have already applied ahead of you? And think about this. What company do you think is actually looking for that position, has over 3,000 people, and hasn't been able to go through that first 100 and find someone that is good enough to hire them? No. They're just doing that because they're trying to get all these numbers. But here's the other side of that. A lot of people get basically dismissed because of the software that they have. So they're looking for these, quote unquote, these keywords, and not the good keywords that you do when you're writing blog articles or articles online for SEO purposes. They're looking for keywords to get rid of people. So for instance, my issue is that I'm older. So, you know, if I have to put down the year I went to college or graduated from college, I'm in trouble. It's just going to kill me. So you have that kind of thing. So what happens, of course, if they repost, now those numbers start again. And it looks like if you're reposting, you can get to 150 applicants, and then you will see something on LinkedIn that says more than 150 applicants. So that's kind of a new thing, you know, to look at. And if it says that and that's all it says, and usually, like I said, because I'm looking at 3 days, if they've already had 150 applications in 3 days, most probably they don't really need anyone. They're just getting names and numbers. And you're wasting your time. No sense even bothering with that. So that's just the truth. Here's another thing. This is one of my things because I log down every company and every position that I apply for. So I have this massive file right now of all these different names. And it turns out there's some companies that I've applied for more than once. And early on, there were some companies I applied to like 5 or 6 times, not really thinking much about it. Then I started to think, wait a minute, some of these titles, they're not the exact same, but they're close to the same. They should have my name on file already. Why do they need to like advertise this again? Because they don't really have that position available at the time. They don't always send out the rejection email saying, you know, we've gone with someone else, so you can mark that down. So you don't always know. But I'm of the opinion, this is just me, y'all don't have to listen to this one, but I'm of the opinion that if I have applied 3 different positions and they're somewhat close to each other, even if they're not, and you as an organization have decided that your time is too valuable to keep anybody who might be pretty good internally so that you don't have to repost that again, then you're just playing with people. I don't like to get played with. I'd rather move on to something else. So that's something you have to look at. So me, if I apply to a company 3 times and I get rejected 3 times, or I just get totally ignored, they go down into my never apply to this company again list. And there are some names that I've gotten used to, and I've seen that they've applied, you know, put out positions 10 or 11 times over the course of the last 12 months. That's just ridiculous. That makes no sense whatsoever. Now, I know some of those companies are applying for jobs that aren't really to work for them, they're to work for someone else. But no, I'm not being played with in that way. So that's something else. Don't waste your time on it. And then here's the next one. Any questions, if you're filling something out online that does not have an asterisk next to it, you don't have to fill it out. That one took me a while to realize that I had been putting in the year I graduated from college, and there was no asterisk next to it. There was no asterisk next to, boy, try saying that a whole bunch of times real fast. But there was nothing asking what year I went, you know, I started, what year I graduated, what did I actually study. There's some of those that have that, and they want to know what you studied. But let's face the fact here. At least for someone like me, I'm applying mainly for jobs in the healthcare sector, healthcare finance. Why do they care what my major was in college? Back when I went to college, that wasn't anything they taught in college, in regular college. If you get to a nursing school, you might learn some things, but for the position I was doing, that wasn't in a nursing school. There was nothing in any college that I know of that taught what I was going to be doing, which started out as medical billing and then healthcare financing, you know, different things like that. No one was teaching that. You pretty much learn it on the job. Now there's certifications for things like that, but back in my day, there wasn't any of that. So look at some of those other kind of things. And by the way, when they ask you what your race is, how do you want to define yourself gender-wise, or, geez, what's the other one? There's one other thing there. But you don't have, disability. You always get a choice saying, I don't want to answer this, or I prefer not to answer. Whatever the wording is, you don't have to tell them anything. Even if you do have to answer the question because there's an asterisk next to it, there's always a thing down there that says you don't have to answer this particular question. So I don't answer the race question because I don't trust anybody. I know what, folks are saying, oh, we have equal opportunity employment. I'm not buying it. So I don't answer that one, and I don't answer the one about disability. I don't answer it. It turns out diabetes is on the list of disabilities. I don't necessarily consider that as a true disability when you look at all the other things that are on there, but I'd rather not mention it because they don't ask you which one you have. They just want to know if you have a disability. So, nah, I'd rather not answer it. Think about that, though. You know, you don't always have to give them everything that you want. So, this is an important thing. That's it for those, tips and things. But there was this other thing that popped up on LinkedIn. It was kind of an article, but a lot of people got into this. This article showed up where it said that there were people who, over the course of 3 months after losing their job, had put in more than 500 applications at companies trying for these jobs and getting rejected or not hearing anything at all. 500. I felt like a slacker because I was just about to hit 200, which I'm over now. And that's been over, after a year. As a matter of fact, it could be a little higher than that because I didn't start logging all the things that I was bidding for until 3 months later. But still, I've hit over 200. So you're not alone. Anyone who says that you should be able to get any kind of job and, be able to, at least find some kind of work, it ain't as easy as it sounds. Even in those industries where there happens to be jobs. Most of us aren't trained to be a teacher, and we wouldn't want that job. It's a harder job than anyone thinks it is. And in Florida, they've, decided if someone has retired from the military, that qualifies them to be a teacher. I think they're ranked either number 48 or number 49 in the nation on education. Think about that one for a while. So it's not easy. This is not an easy place. It's not an easy thing to do. If you're lucky enough to be able to just reach out and contact someone locally, that works out well. But you need to know that it is not our fault that we don't have a position if we're applying for all these different positions. Are there ways to get around it? Not that I know of. But like I said, I've at least, as I've had to modify my resume, I've at least had a few more interviews. I even had one local. So there you go. Actually, I had two, but I'm not counting one of those because it was just a little ridiculous. So we're just throwing that away. Anyway, that's all I have. I stayed under 20 minutes. I'm pretty happy about that. Let me know what you think. Take a look at the video that I'm going to link to that goes somewhere else. And I hope y'all have a wonderful rest of this month. It's Christmas month. There you go. Y'all take care.